It's time to restart doing so. So here's the first problem that we're gonna solve. Is quite simple. This one is the first problem of Project Euler. If you don't know, that Project Euler is a project with a lot of questions, mathematical questions. There's no certain framework to it. Like you can use any programming language that you want and solve them. They're just math problems. But here we're gonna use C language to solve this. So we can see the problem statement say that right. Let's say if we have a list of the natural numbers below 10 that are multiples of 3 or 5, and we get 3, 5, 6, and 9, and then we sum all these number up, and we got 23. So the problem asking is find the sum of all of such number that is below n. I think there's a mistake here. Like find the sum of all the multiples of 3 or 5. Right, so this question is a bit different from the problem one of Project Euler. The Project Euler is asking that the number is not a multiple of either 3 or 5. But in this case, they're asking the sum of all the multiple of 3 or 5. So yeah, we have to sum them up. Right, so the input is going to be the number of test cases. T is the number of test cases, and each contain an integer of n. So this n is the number of the biggest number that would in like we have to find all the multiples of 3 or 5 below that number. For example, in this case, this sample input, they say 2, and then this means that 2 test cases, and the first one, the n number is 10. This means all the numbers below 10, and the other one is 100. Okay, right, simple enough. So let's get into coding. I'm gonna open Vim. Right, let's call this multiples.c. Right, so here is the multiple c.c, and program input everything. So according to the convention of the lab, let's just put the header comment, say and a brief description of the problem. So find the sum of all the multiples of 3 or 5 below a number n. Right, and if I want to put my name, yeah, my name and discussion group. So right, pretty much it. Then of course we're gonna need the main function, which is void. Right, I want to explain a bit about this void. Usually people don't put there, but I just put it for sake of them. Sometimes you see people put it, and it's the same anyway, so it doesn't affect that much. Right, because this one we define it integer and main, so we have to return something, otherwise the program is gonna complain. Right, so this is pretty much the boilerplate for that. And right, so this one we need to read some input and output, so we have to include a library that is standard ino. Right, that's it for now. Do we need the math library? For now, no, so we better not include it yet. Right, so now we're gonna write our test cases, like our input for the test cases. So we know that we have t test cases. This one will be number of test cases, and then we also have n. This one is the number n given, so that we find all the numbers below them, which is the multiples of 3 or 5. Right, hang on, let me put the link for the problem statement so that you can see that. So here's a link that of the problem we are solving. So if you want, you can just go there and read the questions, right? So now what we need to do is that we have to go through each of the test cases, and then we take the input of n, and but let's backtrack that. Before we resolve the input, let's just put a simple n first, and then we test if our program work for some case of n that we input. So let's do some printf, enter number n, and then scanf. Right, so this is scan, so ampersand, right? Right, so we take the input of n, and now what we need to do is we need to output. So we need to output the sum of all the multiples of 3 or 5. Right, so how do we find the multiples of 3 or 5? Well, we could do a logical. So we could do the logical number mod 3 equals 0, or number mod 5 equals 0. Yeah, this would work. It's one-liner, but we want to modularize this program, so we're gonna put them inside a function. I think put them in a function will be clearer in this case. So we will try to abstract this into a function. Right. So over here, I can either. So I'm trying to write a function prototype over here. All right. So we want to ask a simple question like the number, if they are multiple of 3 or multiple of 5. So int is multiple of 3, and then we give them a number, integer, it, and int is multiple of 5, integer, number. So over here we have two function prototype. We're gonna go down and define our function. So we have is multiple, right? So this is autocomplete, so don't worry about that. If you don't have it, you can ask me how to add them in, but yeah, I can show them later for you. Okay, so now you can see that we have multiple of 3, so we better put a command over here. So this function will return 1, which stands for true if the number is multiple of 3, right? So what we need to do is we need to do a if else case. If number mod 3 equal double equal stand for the comparison equal and not assignment, so take note of that. This one will mean a different thing, so yep, take note of the double equal sign. Right, so if the number is a multiple of 3, we return 1, which stands for true, and otherwise we return 0, which stands for false. Right, so we have this. Then we need another is multiple of 5. So this multiple of 5 is pretty much the same thing. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to copy this code in Vim. To do that, you can press V, stand for visual, and then you go down to select all of everything, and then you press escape. No, not escape. You press Y to yank the line. Yank is simply means copy, and then you press P, which stands for paste, and yep, here you have it. Function. So now we just need to modify a little bit. To find the number 3, you can press F3. F stands for 5, and then 3. And then if you want to change from this number 3 to number 5, you can press R5. Press R, which stands for replace, and then 5. That's it. Right. So same thing over here. Replace by 5. this one replaced by 5, and then we have it. Right, so now we have this multiple of 3 and multiple of 5. What we need to do is we have to go through from number 1 to all the way until n, right? So now we need to loop it, so we need some counter number. So let's say we have this stand for current number, and it's always start from 1, so we can initialize 1 over here. Now we can do a for loop over here. For loop is very convenient because we know when we want to stop, because we have the n, which is the large number, so we can just go from 1 to n using a for loop. Over here I'm going to demonstrate using the while loop. So while the current number is lesser or equal to n, and then close the braces and open the braces, right? So what it means over here is that the loop will continue execute as long as the current number is lesser or equal to n. So right, and what we do inside is we're going to check if the current number is either a multiple of 3 or a multiple of 5, and if it is, we add them to a sum. So now, all right, before that we have to have a sum, and the sum is gonna plot, so we should initialize to 0, right? So now we have current number, so we have if is multiple of 3 current number, or is multiple of 5 current number, right? And it close it, open braces. So we have a red over here, which stands for we mess something up. So over here is an extra one, so you can remove that, right? So now if this is a multiple of 3 and this is multiple of 5, remember, seems to be correct, like what we comment over here. And if it is so, we sum plus equal to current number. That's it. And but if it's done, but if it's not, then whether it's a multiple of 3 or not, then we always increase the current number by 1. So it's continue the loop. All right, and over here, after the loop, we have the sum of all the number that is lesser than n and is a multiple of 3 or 5. Now we just need to print the result. So sum of multiples of 3 or 5 below. This one is later for the n number, and then got another d which is for the sum. So it's going to be n and sum. Right, so let's check the correctness. Alright, so now if you want to do compiling right inside of Vim, you can do colon and then using a exclamation mark, like the cursor is there, and then just the GCC. This one is multiples of C. When you use a Unix command line, if you type a certain number, a certain name of the file, and you just type the first few characters of the file, you can press tab. If it's a unique name, then it will auto complete for you. And then this one output for multiples. All right, so it's done compiling. Now I want to execute another one. Is want to run the program. So we have this. Enter number n. Let's test with 10. And here we have something that is not correct. So, all right. So the problem here is that we know that the output is 23, but we are 33, which means we are more than 10 more than the actual result. So yeah, so we shouldn't do the equal here, because if you equal, that means if current number is number 10, it's just a multiple of 5, so it will be a plus inside, right? So if we remove that and compile again, we have to save it. So to save it, you colon right save the file, and then now compile it. HO, right, and run it. Multiples, right. Now if we enter the 10, we have 23. So over here, I skip a little bit of testing the correctness of is multiple of 3 or is multiple of 5. So usually when you do the coding incrementally, when you finish writing a function, you should test the function whether it's correct or not. In this case, I would demonstrate if I want to correct that. So if I want to test the e multiple of 3, let's just comment this section out. Right. If I want to test that, let's just say I put some a equal to 3, a equal 3, b equal to 5, c equal to 6, and d equal to 99. And then for each of them, I just printf multiple of 3, and I'll check if is multiple of 3. A, right, so I'm gonna yank this. I'm gonna paste 3 times. So if I want to paste 3 times, I press 3, then P. So it's gonna do the same command. P stand for pasting 3 times, right? So if you want to yank the whole line, I press double Y, right? And now 3P. So what it does is it pastes it 3 times. This is some of the command in V, which is very useful. And now remember that we can replace a character by pressing R and the letter that we want to change it into. In this case, B, this one is C, and this one is D. All right, so now we're gonna save it. Over here, we test if this one, if A is multiple of 3, it should display number 1 because it's true, and this one should display a number 0, and these two should be number 1, right? So let's compile them. Let's see. Right, it's run correctly, so hopefully it's correct. And well, this is the input above, but it doesn't affect that much, so just enter. Right, so we check that over here. Multiple of 3 is 1, multiple of 3 is 0, multiple of 3 is 1. Right, so it's correct according to our assumption. So we can be certain that the is multiple of 3 is quite correct. Right, you can do a similar things to 5, but I'm not going to do that here because it's very similar. So if now if we get back to the problem, right, we see that if the input is 10, it's going to output 23, and if the input is 100, it's going to output the 2318. Yeah. Right, so I get back to the code and test out the number 100, expecting 2318.